Is there something? Is there a target that government is trying to get to, that the upper 20% total share should be?
That's a nice question, but unfortunately, even the Millennium Development Goals does not specify a target as far as income inequality is concerned. Right. It's kind of hard.
It's hard. You know, the reason I asked that is because overnight, the Pew Global Attitude Survey, they actually came out, the same income inequality appears in the United States with larger gap, but larger than 50%.
Yes. The difference is in the United States, their standard of living is much higher than ours.
Correct.
So this is why when you have in a country like ours now, where the living standards are not the same as the United States, when you see income inequality, then you're a bit more concerned. All right. So that means, in other words, what I'm trying to drive at is maybe part of the solution there is the rich may want to really rethink why is it that they continue to have so much wealth? Why do they continue, not to pay their taxes, not to pay their taxes properly? I mean, it's a bit of a shame, because if we keep thinking, this is again a misuse of statistics. When we said that there have been no changes in the percentages, the statistics office is not really trying to say that the government has not done anything.
Which is the way it's been interpreted by
some
the UNA, for example.
Well, I will not refer. I will not be a political.
Sure, sure. Let's just say the opposition
are political neutral.
Agree.
But I'm just saying that I think I will have to say a point about this conditional cash transfer, which people are starting. Some people seem to be suggesting that it has not worked. That's actually not what the numbers are saying. Because as far as the CCT is concerned, the conditional cash transfer, when DSWD identified the poor households, they actually provided some money per child, 300 pesos per child, plus for a maximum of 3 children, and additional 500 for health extra support. But on condition that these children are going to school, on condition that there's deworming that will be given, and on condition that they're getting better health services if the women of a pregnant woman in the family is going to health centers. But should it be possible that they do not have good attendance in school, these conditions, this extra support is actually withdrawn. That's why it's called conditional cash transfer. Some people mistake it as being a dole out. In fact, in one of the networks, TV networks, he started implying that the CCT may be better made use of in other things. That's not what these numbers are actually suggesting. The CCT is meant to be a long-term solution. If we had a president like ours, who actually had done this 10 years ago, maybe we would have a much better situation now.
Interesting. One of the businessmen actually encapsulated it by saying it's like pump priming from the bottom.
Yes.
So government generally pump primes
from
the top.
I will tell you, the poor, we have calculated for a family of 5. By the way, a poor family tends to have a family size of 6. Okay. But for a family of 5, we would look at what's known as the income gap.
Yes.
Okay. How much would they need to be able to cross the poverty line? They need 2,200. But you remember, the CCT would only give them 1,400. So it's not enough. It's not enough. If we add up, if we did what's known as an unconditional cash transfer, and we gave everybody, we did a dole out to all the poor, assuming we know who they are, we give exactly what they need. Our estimate was that for one semester, we would be needing 80 billion pesos, or in other words, for 1 year, 160 billion pesos. The CCT budget is only less than 40 billion pesos. So I think we're a bit off.
Well, I think the criticism also comes from how it's being administered, and but
that's not the point. The point here is that people seem to be thinking that the CCT is a wrong solution, that you're encouraging mendicancy. That's not actually true, because it's not an unconditional cash transfer. It's a conditional cash transfer.
Do you see the CCT reflected in the numbers?
I would not go that far, but Director General Balisacan of NEDA specifically said, when he reacted to our numbers, he said that if we didn't have the CCT, the numbers might have been worse.
Interesting. Let me throw some questions for you from
Sure.
from web user. He said, "Are we on track? Can we achieve MDG, the Millennium Development Goal target?"
Again, because we produce the numbers, I can't say whether
Yes.
we're on track or not, because being on track means you're trying to see where you were and where would you like to be. I would
Correct.
rather leave that to our policymakers. However, the NEDA itself, which analyzes all the figures that we come up with,
Yes.
by the way, the NSCB is the one that has the repository of all the MDG statistics.
Right.
But as far as what NEDA says, when NEDA came out with the Millennium Development Goal Report, they did say that they are very hopeful we will get there.
We'll
we
hit
will,
the targets.
We will hit many of the targets.
The other thing that you said also was on Tuesday that disasters were a threat to development. I mean, we're seeing climate change really starting
Yes.
to kick in.
Yes.
What did you mean by that, and what do we need to do now?
What I was trying to suggest, was that, again, when we start thinking that, oh, maybe these things did not work, maybe they wasted so much money, you have to recognize that there are contexts.
Yes.
If
The conditions have changed.
If things have actually changed, remember, in fact, that now our disasters are already starting to change.
Yes.
The climate disasters decades ago, they used to hit Luzon area.
Yes.
Now they're starting to hit Visayas,
And
Mindanao.
yes.
And Mindanao is really a very agricultural area where many poor reside.
Yes.
So you might be able to say, even if government was actually doing some work,
Yes.
helping them, maybe there's, it's just balancing off. So we will need to help people more. There are bigger challenges. That's all that the statistics are saying. There really are bigger challenges. But it is not saying that the government should be immediately say, I'm not government's defense attorney, by the way, but
No.
but unfortunately, I think some people may be putting too much of a twist to our numbers, and it is my responsibility to stand up when I know that there is a misinterpretation of the numbers that we are generating, that we have just generated.
So how would you gauge the Filipino today? I mean, how is he compared to what it was in 2006 and 2009? Is he doing better? Is he doing worse? Or is it, as your numbers point out, the same?
Well, as far as the average is concerned,
Yes.
it appears that there was an average income was rising, right?
Yes.
That was what I was saying.
Right.
Average income was rising, depending on what income distribution, part of the income distribution you were in. Likely for those people at the top, then you're better off than
Yes.
those people at the bottom.
Yes.
But as far as the poor is concerned, the percentages have not changed. That's all the story that we're saying.
That's like the saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Somewhat,
Fortunately and unfortunately.
yeah, but again, to some extent, we have to be fair, because we also have to point out that when you say no change, it really doesn't mean strictly no change.
No, it's just the average of it.
Yeah.
There were changes.
Pretty much.
So the flip side of it is, now that we have these high growth rates, in general, how long does it take to trickle down? Government, ADB is talking about inclusive growth.
Again, let me point out that, again, as my role, our role in the NSCB as official statisticians is just to release the numbers. Somebody else has to do that kind of interpretation. I'm sorry, but that's way out of my line. But if you wanted to ask those kinds of questions, you'd have to refer to NEDA to get more definitive answers. But I think as far as what NEDA is saying is that they are very optimistic. Okay, that's all that I can say.
But the flip side, again, even rationally, you could think, even when you put water into barren earth, not to use a metaphor, but when you put water in it, it takes a while to soak into the earth, correct? Is that is that the right
Pretty much.
metaphor to use?
That's my sense. I mean, maybe we were, in fact, in another interview, I have so many interviews these days.
Yes.
In one of the other interviews, I said, maybe we're expecting too much too soon.
Or people are connecting things that aren't necessarily
No,
connected.
and I remember someone also was saying that it's kind of hard sometimes when you're looking at your weight, for instance. It's sometimes hard. You might not see any changes, but maybe some of the changes might be coming in certain areas, and you're not really necessarily seeing on the overall you don't see much change, but there might be some areas where you're actually changing, right?
It's like the tipping point by Malcolm Gladwell.
Exactly.
How little things make a difference.
Yes.
You don't see it until it tips.
Exactly.
And that's when you see the
exactly. So we just have to wait. And some people were saying, well, how long will I have to wait? Well, we've been waiting for so long. Why can't you wait a little bit
more than
longer?
25 years. Yeah.
Right?
Sure,
Okay.
sure. Let me ask you, my last question, I guess, is if you were to look at what the statistics tell us, what needs immediate attention? What needs attention now?
I think, again, in fairness, our NEDA already sort of mentioned that, that they sort of anticipated these numbers.
Yes.
They said that the people at NEDA, particularly Director General Balisacan, was pointing out that because even first the GDP is concerned, if you break it down for gross value added for agriculture for the first semester, it was per capita it was actually negative growth. So there was very little growth in agriculture for the first semester. That was what they're saying, especially for certain things like seaweeds,
yes.
certain I think for fisheries, but for the entire agriculture sector, they were experiencing some negative growth. But again, NEDA DG Balisacan pointed out that for the second semester, there was some kind of recovery for agriculture. And also, sometimes, they, as pointed out, at least by the numbers we generated, it seems that there was some, everything was starting to pile up. There was, even the private sector started to investing in the second semester. So that's why they are expecting. I'm not expecting anything because I produce the numbers.
Right.
So they are expecting the full year FIES when it is analyzed on our third quarter, when it is made available by our NSO to the NSCB.
Yes.
The NEDA is expecting that the numbers will be better. I don't want to forecast.
Right. Well,
yes.
I'll ask you, my last question has to do with the ability to look ahead with the data that you have.
Sure.
Which your office actually doesn't do, right? But now people are talking about big data, which frankly is what you have access to.
Yes.
Predictive analysis, how realistic is it? Is it something that we should be looking at all?
Yeah, well, predictive analysis is really part of statistical analysis, right? So when you're looking at the numbers, where are the trends? On one hand, the trends can really say a story.
Right.
Where are things going? But we have to caution also ourselves that sometimes when you predict, there's also some likelihood that there might be some big outlier that may screw up your analysis. In fact,
the black swan.
The black swan, exactly. Yeah, you've read the book. Okay.
Yes.
So that's the whole point about the concept of Nicholas Taleb. That while you think that just like a pig who keeps waiting every day to be fed, but at some point it gets slaughtered.
Yes.
All right.
So interesting. Again, your last thoughts in terms of where we're headed now.
My last thoughts. Okay. Well, I would just say that statistics always tell a story. And it's up to us whether we're listening to that story or whether we misunderstand that story. I certainly hope we're all listening.
But it's normal that factions will try to use it.
Of
correct?
course.
You expect that.
Of course. As always, there will, people always put a spin to it.
Right. Okay, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
It's good to have you here, Toots. Okay. We've been speaking with NSCB Secretary General Jose Ramon Albert. He is on Twitter. You can tweet him your questions at Toots_Albert. I'm Maria Ressa. Thank you for joining us on Talk Thursday.